Day 2 is still hot and heavy here in Las Vegas at StarCast 2. Scott Hudson and Sean Mooney hosting here in the StarCast room. And Sean, I know that you just had the experience of a lifetime across the way.
Yeah, I'm still just blown away. We just got done with the sharpshooter, Bret Hart, in his own words, and what a fantastic show it was, listening to Bret talk about the business, the years, the being inducted into the Hall of Fame twice. And then, of course, we follow it all up with the Holy Grail, this match that everybody wanted to know if it still existed. Right. The enhancement match with Tom McGee, who was to be the next everything in the WWF. That was just awesome as it continues here. And in this very room, we just wrapped up a one-on-one session in the Hall of Fame podcast with Booker T. That was also something to experience, a man that has a lot of passion for this sport and a lot of knowledge about this sport. Again, it's like a master's class to hear someone like that speak about this great sport, but we're about to enjoy some Monday Night War stories with Sean Waltman himself. Yeah, X-PAc, 1, 2, 3 kid, however you remember him, but really, if we've heard a lot of stories about the Monday Night Wars, but if you think you've heard everything, think again. I'm hoping that today that we will hear from the Global Wrestling Federation, if I may, back in the ESPN days in 1990 and 91 when we had Sean Waltman's 18th birthday party at a Denny's down on International Boulevard in Dallas, Texas, where at the Denny's we all ran into Liza Minnelli. So I'm hoping that we get that story out of Sean too. But there's a lot going on there. I think it ended up with Scott Levy-Raven maybe auditioning for a spot on reality TV before there was reality TV. Cutting a promo on Liza Minnelli. Can you imagine that? Yes, you can. If you know him, you certainly can. That and so much more still to come from Sean Waltman. He will be here in the StarCast room, and in all seriousness, he has seen it all. Yeah. He was there at the beginning. He was there through the Click, through the Monday Night Wars, through the NWO, and then a Hall of Famer himself. He saw it all, and I think we've got a great crowd that has already arrived here. You folks ready for this? Are you ready for Monday Night War stories? With Sean Waltman, let's welcome our host, Mark Madden.
This is a bigger crowd than we have at Pirate games back in Pittsburgh. My name is Mark Madden. I used to be an announcer for World Championship Wrestling. Many of you may remember me as the guy who ruined TNT Monday Nitro. That said, I want to see y'all call a Viagra on a pole match. For 10 minutes. You won't sound like Gordon Soley, believe me. Now, tonight we're going to have a man I believe to be one of the greatest talents of his generation with a very diverse and storied career to talk about the Monday Night Wars and also about other elements of his wrestling day. So it's going to be a pretty full 90 minutes of discussion. And just to preface, when I was a kid in Pittsburgh, even though I grew up watching Bruno Sammartino and the WWF, Worldwide Wrestling Federation, I was an NWA guy. Where I lived on the highest hill in Pittsburgh, and you could stick a UHF antenna out the window at about 1 o'clock Saturday night and watch Mid-Atlantic Wrestling on WJAC TV Channel 6 from Johnstown, PA, which was about 90 minutes east of Pittsburgh. And that's where I saw guys like Ric Flair, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Greg Valentine, Wahoo McDaniel, and then you know the rest of the names. The stars just kept coming to Jim Crockett Promotions, which was eventually bought by Turner Broadcasting and became World Championship Wrestling. So when the Monday Night Wars broke out, I was already by then employed by WCW. First as a 900 number guy. Hopefully I got some of your money at some point. We made groundbreaking strides in using the internet to promote wrestling with real audio shows like WCW Live, which I thought that we did not get enough credit for. But I was a WCW guy the whole time. Well, I wouldn't shake hands with DD Me the one time, and I got fired a bit early before the end of the show, but that's probably for another discussion. But I took great pride in WCW beating WWE in the Monday Night Ratings war for 83 weeks. I still do to this day. I thought it was an unbelievable achievement, and even though WCW had Turner's money behind it, Vince McMahon had a lot of money too, and he had an unrivaled track record promoting wrestling on a national basis. And WCW had to overcome all that. And we did, and it was great. And in terms of looking at the whole business, we pushed them to be much better. Much, much better as a result of us having beaten them and having had things like real lifestyle storylines and using real names for people like Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. I consider it a really, really big achievement. And I'm assuming just about everybody here is going to see All Elite Wrestling tonight. See, I'll go for the cheap pop. I worked in wrestling long enough. And I consider tonight's show and what happens from here very important because this is wrestling's last stand. Okay, with the Khan family bankrolling and the money being put into AEW, it's a chance for a legitimate number 2 promotion. And if this doesn't work, it might never work. Although that said, there's no small amount of irony in AEW being on TNT because they kicked WCW off that network like it smelled bad. After years and years of great ratings, after years and years of maybe not profitability, especially down near the end, but it was a successful wrestling promotion, and more important to them, or at least it should have been, a successful TV show. And they just kicked it off like it meant nothing because Jamie Kellner, who was a jerk-off at the First Order, just decided he didn't like wrestling. So now Kellner's long gone, and I'm glad to see AEW on TNT, but the irony still resonates. So I'm definitely rooting for AEW, and let's hope, well, I know they'll have a good show tonight, but the hard part for them starts after tonight. But I think had Jamie Kellner not hated WCW, not hated pro wrestling, WCW could still be around today. One thing I always kind of marveled about, with the ratings up for both Raw and Nitro during the war, the commercials sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. But didn't people flip back and forth between the commercials? You know, did anybody actually see the commercials that all this money was paid for? Maybe that's another bit of irony as concerns the Monday Night Wars. Well, I'd like to welcome now out to the stage a guy, like I said, I consider to be one of the most diverse performers in pro wrestling history. I remember seeing him on video wrestling in Minnesota with Jerry Lynn. When he was Lightning Kid, they took that act to Global Wrestling Federation. Then, of course, he surfaced in WWE as, well, they called him a bunch of different kids, but ultimately 1, 2, 3 Kid when he burst into prominence, beating Scott Hall on Monday Night Raw. Then he migrated to WCW, became 6, then went back to WWE, was rechristened X-PAc, and I think the return interview he gave in WWE, if not the turning point in the Monday Night War, was certainly a big moment because, I don't know, Sean and I will talk about this in a moment, but he was a guy who was cool, and he came back, and in one speech, he made WCW sound uncool. And that was hard to do back then. That said, he protected Kevin Nash and Scott Hall because that's what those guys do, and I think that's one of the most admirable things about that group of friends in wrestling. And I'm proud to call them my friends as well. So without further ado, let's welcome to the stage X-PAc, Sean Waltman.
X-PAc! You think you can tell us what to do? Yeah. You think you can tell us what to win? You think you better? Yeah. Well, you better get ready to bow to the master. I just got tired of doing what you told me to do. But that's a break, boy. Yeah, that's a break, fiddle man. Tell her. X-PAc, putting full mind to a stop, speak my mind. I keep it rocking, that's bottom line. Suck it, 2 tears in the bucket.
Hey, is this thing on? Make a little noise for Lula.
Lulu is an awesome story, actually a rescue dog, if I'm correct, right?
Does everyone know the story already? I'll just make it quick. I found her in the street, wandering in traffic. She was all bloody and jaws broken, blind in the right eye. So I kept her, and now she's with me. and she's happy, and she makes me happy. And I bring her a lot of places, and everyone loves to see her. So
No, she's awesome. I love to see her. So give it up one more time for Lula. And by the way, please forgive an old radio guy because I need notes to refer to. My memory's I didn't take one bump, and my memory's still shot. Sean, like I said, always great to see you. And I guess we got to lead off with that promo I talked about during the intro. It was March of 1998. You'd been fired at WCW. First off, why were you fired at WCW? Because I got to be honest, I was there, and I'm still not sure why.
Well, I mean, I know what it seemed like at the time, but Eric has a different. His version is slightly different, and I allow him to have that.
All these years later, like you told me just the other day, there's no room for grudges.
Grudges. I thought you said crutches. Jeez, I need to get this shit out of my
No, in my case, there's no room for crunches, pretty evidently.
Okay, so I got hurt in a house show match with Lex Luger, and I broke my neck. It was the second time I broke my neck, but I guess that's neither here nor there. I wrestled for a few weeks with it, and it was just too much, I was trying to get a raise, everyone. Everyone else was getting raises around there. Everyone else was renegotiating contracts, so I figured I could do that too. So anyways, yeah, I broke my neck. I had to have surgery. I was out for, I think the total, anyways, it was just short of a year. But, during that time, WCW, they paid me 100% of my salary. Like I got paid all my money the whole time I was up. And I'm very grateful to that, for that. But we were kind of difficult. You remember how we were.
I do. That's a good word, difficult.
Yeah. We called it waving the prick flag.
And we waved it high, didn't we?
Yeah. So, God, I wish I could see everyone's faces and eyes out there. Oh, these lights are so damn bright.
That's because you're the star. You're in the spotlight.
Oof, boy.
So anyway, you got paid in full while your neck was broken, but the next thing you know, you're gone.
Yeah, well, something happened, and I'm not going to get all up into the weeds on what it was that pissed Eric off, but Kevin and Scott, or specifically, I think Kevin pissed Eric off, and their contracts were different than mine. They were more ironclad in that you couldn't really punish them very, very easily.
And they had favored nations too, in that if somebody else came to WCW and got more than they did, their salaries were raised to match the new guys' money coming in. They were great contracts.
Yeah, when Bret Hart came in, they got a raise then too.
Amen. Thank you, Bret.
Yeah. So anyways, where the fuck was I?
You got fired.
Yeah, I got fired.
By FedEx, as I recall.
Yeah. So, I'm sitting at home. It's like 10 months into my recovery, and I'm watching, but I will say this. In the meantime, as I'm sitting at home, I'm watching, because I didn't get a chance to watch WWE that much.
Right.
But I'm at home now, so I get to see the competition, right? And I could see things were heating up over there, right? The Montreal screw job thing had just happened. The stuff with Mike Tyson was going on. Anyways, they were getting a buzz going again, right?
DX really getting a buzz?
Yeah, all that. And anyway, so, whatever happened, Eric got pissed, and he couldn't punish those guys, so he fired me. And
that's about how I remember it, actually.
Yeah, I got a FedEx in the mail, and I remember at the time going, oh, what kind of chicken shit bullshit is this? Dude, you're distracting the shit out of me. Get the fuck out of here. I'm just kidding.
In a bit.
Where was I?
So anyway, you got fired. You got FedEx. You're done,
Yeah.
and you're back in New York.
Yeah, I got
before you
FedEx.
know
But honestly, in fairness to Eric, how else was he supposed to fire me? Fly me all the way to Atlanta, bring me to his office? I'd be really fucking.
It would not have made you feel any better, right?
Right. So, it really wasn't. That's how you do it, I guess, right? In the real world.
Well, right, and then you end up in New York before you know it.
I got that, and after I read it, I was actually, I was on the phone with Wade Keller
Of Pro Wrestling Torch.
Yes, when I got the when I got the FedEx, and I was joking around because I said, WCW.
You
Nick
literally
Lambros.
opened it while you're on the phone with Wade Keller.
Yeah. I'm like Nick Lambros, and I'm joking. I'm like, it's probably fucking my letter of termination or something. Just kidding around.
And it was your
Letter of termination.
There you go.
So after the initial, I'm pissed off, because I don't like getting fired like that. I'm like, oh, fuck yeah. Like, shit's going. Yes. Because, honestly, here's the thing. I had a 180 day cap on the days they could work me per year.
Right.
It sounds great, right? Except for they could work you 180 days straight with no fucking days off.
Right.
And
sometimes days would get piled up in great consecutive numbers because just based on the schedule.
Yeah, and then at some point, like Scott kind of fell off a little bit, and so then Eric put me on the road with him when I wasn't on the road for my own, matches and bookings.
You were kind of helping Scott out.
Well, that's what you do, but I got to have time for my family too, right?
Right.
And I wasn't getting it. But anyways, the thought of going back to WWE was really appealing. And just so happens, Sean was done. Like, his back was screwed up. They were just trying to get him to Mania. And Hunter called me, and he told me the story. And because they heard that, I got terminated. And it was just perfect timing. It was, honestly, it couldn't have been better timing.
Well, speaking of perfect timing, then you returned to Raw, and that was in March of '98, and you cut this hellacious promo, which just kills WCW. It cuts them to the quick, but it's not sophomoric, it's not name calling, and it's just true to life. It's like, as I said in my intro, WCW, built real-to-life storylines, and Sean Waltman took one from WCW and brought it to WWE.
Yeah, and turned around and used it against them.
Exactly.
Yeah. I used a little judo on them. Used their own weight against them. So, but even before I showed back up on Raw, I remember there was this big conversation with Eric and Scott and Kev, and it wasn't a pleasant one. And Eric was like, I think Eric kind of thought, we'll just kind of put him in his place. He's out anyways, and it's not like he can do it.
To be honest, I think he thought he'd bring you back after a relatively short period of time.
That's what I was going to say. He told Kevy, have Waltman give me a call. And my attitude at the time was, fuck him, tell him to call me. Are there kids in the audience?
We can't see him, it doesn't matter.
All right. Is it okay, all the F-bombs I'm dropping? It's kind of how I talk. All right.
We got a good crowd there cheering verbal obscenity.
Where was I again?
Bischoff wanted you
to
call.
Right. I already figured. It was all. I'd already made up my mind. I was not going back. So it was just a matter of making a deal with WWE.
Well, now when you cut that promo, could you feel it working when you're up there with the mic? Because a good promo, usually the guy who delivers it can do that. Did you feel that it was doing the job?
Yeah. Once it started going. But, did anyone hear my Hall of Fame speech? So, when I said I was, insanely nervous, and even there was a documentary done on me from the Performance Center when I was there, and I talk about, speaking in public, right now, this is one of my fears.
Me actually, for a radio guy, me too, because you're just, but actually the lights help because it looks like nobody's here.
So the reason I brought that up is because I was so nervous when I was going out there, and I remember I was in gorilla position, and Vince, he looked at me and he goes, they're expecting something big, give it to them. And I'd like to think I did.
No, it was a brilliant promo, and I watched it on TV, and I could feel the impact. I could feel that the fans were really buying into it. It seemed like a big moment, and I think it turned out to be a big moment in the Monday Night War. So, how much impact do you think that speech in particular had, and how much impact did DX have once you joined, and that really became a heck of a group? It became like the backstage shit disturbers come to life.
Yeah. I don't like tooting my own horn. I don't like.
Oh, please, that's why we're here.
I know, but that's actually why you're here.
And I'll toot it. You guys tell me, but I thought that promo was a turning point. What do you think?
Thank you. Yeah, that's what a lot of people say, and I'm not going to argue with anyone on that. This is what I'll say. I was incredibly nervous, and it had some good stuff in it, but it was not a smooth delivered promo. It wasn't eloquently delivered.
Yeah, but I think that got over the fact that you were pissed.
It's authentic. It's authentic, and I got my point across. And one of them was, and I ran this by Kev. Kev, I was on the phone with Kev the night before, and we discussed how, and he agreed it would be a good idea if I said that those two are being held hostage by WCW. And so, moving forward a little bit, we were actually sued over all that. And in the deposition, Turner's lawyers, WCW's lawyers asked me, why did you say Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were being held hostage and would be right there with you? And I said, because Kev said it would be a good idea when I talked to him on the phone the night before. And the guy was just like, oh, fuck.
I was in a few of those depositions as well, as you know. Not a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then one of them was like, hey, and I don't even know what this had to do with anything. What do you mean when you say suck it? Suck what?
One would think
I think you could guess what I told him, right?
Yeah, there's a universal truth there somewhere. Now, a month later, give or take, after you arrive back in WWE, DX invades Nitro at Norfolk at the Scope.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that, and what was your reaction? Who came up with that idea, and what was your reaction when it was proposed?
I do not know who came up with that idea. I just showed up. I just like Road Dogg and Billy and Joni. I think Joni knew because she was with Paul at the time. But we were like, "What the fuck's this Jeep doing here with the Howitzer cannon on the back of it?" And then we found out, and they actually asked us like as if we were going to do something like it's like kind of like they were giving us the option, like if you don't want to do this, we understand. We're like, fuck that, we're doing it. No one even thought twice.
Well, how do you feel it worked? Because obviously it did, but when I heard it was going to happen, because I'm at Norfolk, don't forget at that point.
You're in the building.
Doing the backstage stuff, and we heard it was going to happen. And to be honest, the reaction backstage was, well, this won't work. It'll come off as really juvenile and sophomoric. And it did, but in a really good way. It was funny, but not cringe funny. And like the fact that there was no pushback at all from WCW, I think, again, sold the whole angle on your behalf.
Yeah. Well, my idea was to go down the ramp first and not go screw around and do all the other bullshit around the building.
To go right down the entrance ramp.
Yes, because I thought, like the whole idea was to get inside the building. But apparently, I don't know. Like,
well, it would have been tough to get inside the building, Sean.
No, the door was wide open.
Oh.
And as we were going, do you guys remember as we were going down the ramp, they closed it because they knew we were there. So, like, my thing was, let's try to go,
If you would have done it right away.
Yes.
Right away, that's right.
But see, here's the thing. We had not one conversation, no game plan, no plan B plan, whatever, in case, like, okay, we did get inside or we were confronted because they had a hell of a roster.
In that vein, certainly, that's right.
And like on our crew, we had Billy. Let's be honest. So
yeah, and you would have been outnumbered too.
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah, and so and we didn't know, like, with some of the guys, like, be pissed like we were coming at them.
You really didn't know what would happen when you went there, right?
Right.
That was a tough one to predict, but it's another thing. It worked, and I think that's how WWE got back in the game and eventually, won the Monday Night War. You guys took risk, but it was educated risk with good talent. It worked.
Yeah. And honestly, I remember when we hightailed it back to where were we? Hampton.
Yes, Hampton Roads.
Yeah, and we got back there, time for the show to start, and we went out and did our segment. And I remember Paul looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and I think we're still in our camos and shit like that, and like we just won the war.
And metaphorically speaking,
Yes.
you did, and I think, like I said, I think that was a big turning point. Now, not to pump your tires, because I'm allowed to do that, though. When you were with WCW, we were winning the war. When you went to
Yes.
WWE, they won the war. That speaks highly, doesn't it?
Pretty good timing on my part.
It really was. But when you were with both companies, because you're one of the people who has legitimately seen it from both sides at the peak of the war.
Yeah. You know what a lot of people, I don't mean to cut you
No,
out
go
there,
ahead.
but Mark, a lot of people don't realize that I actually started the migration. I mean, after Lex.
Right.
It was a meeting I had with Barry Bloom that started Scott, then Kevin, and then myself and all that going.
Yeah, no. I mean, you were, well, the name says it all. You were the 6th NWO member. And to be honest, and we'll get to this in detail later, but you were one of the last ones that really made sense.
Yeah.
After that, it started going, I don't want to say off the rails, but maybe off the board.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, let me check my notes here if I could. Now, when you were with each company,
Yes.
did you keep track of the ratings? Was that something that happened backstage where the ratings were talked about and discussed? Did creative or the boss bring it up when you spoke backstage?
It was a thing. It definitely was a thing. It wasn't like in WWE. It wasn't put over as much as it was in WCW.
Right, because WCW, let's face it, got to Monday night to try to initiate and then win the war.
Yes.
With WWE, it was something that happened. It's almost like, you guys got invaded, metaphorically, initially.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What were you?
Well, no, was it talked about much backstage?
Been hitting out a lot, folks.
And
A lot of drugs.
Well, and you're right, because it was.
I'm not on any right now, though.
I was never backstage in WWE, but it was discussed a lot in WCW, wasn't it?
The ratings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And and when you're losing them, they're not as big a deal. Like, the ratings are, or when ratings are down, like we try to downplay them. How important they are, right? But when they're fucking up, man, oh my God, did you see that number we did last night?
That's the truth. And just to complete what Sean said, whenever you would have talent meetings in WCW, and we were doing real well, that was the big rally the troops move to bring up the rating and kind of strut a little bit about it. It was real important to Eric, which I understand it should have been. That's why, again, Turner gave him the time slot on Monday night to initiate and win.
Yeah.
Now.
So I mean, this was before Kevin Scott and I went down there. It was when Lex left, and they were, you could tell, shit was on. They were making moves, right?
Right.
And Vince got really, things got heavy, because Bobby Heenan was down there, and there was a lot of relationships that between people in different companies, and Vince would not let any of his people talk to anyone that worked for WCW.
Right, because to Vince it felt like betrayal.
Yes, or like exchanging notes.
Not business, but betrayal.
Yeah.
And it really was just business. I mean, I don't know that anybody went anywhere in the Monday Night Wars, whether from Atlanta to New York or vice versa, with the idea, hey, we're going to, fuck shit up for the other company. Maybe you did because you had a good reason, but in general, people just went to the highest bidder.
We just wanted to go down there and make more money, work less days, spend more time with our family, and have fun doing what we do. Because we didn't feel like we were being able to do that, in WWF. And if you watch like the Monday Night Wars series on the network, they get into that. We talk about that,
Now,
Vince is stubborn.
We spoke about the NWO angle a while ago, and even though it was an outrageous success for really the best part of 2 or 3 years, I felt like it could have gone a bit better and lasted a bit longer. What's your take on the way the NWO angle was created and then played out once you got there?
Well, everyone, the common criticism is just like after a certain point, whenever a new talent was coming in, they didn't know what to do with them. I just give them a fucking NWO shirt. And so, yeah, there were, and it just got to be too much. And even though like a lot of the people that were in the NWO were fucking all-stars, you know?
Right.
And at least some of the guys we got to send to Japan and like do kick-ass business over there for us, like Scott Norton and
Right.
you know, guys like that.
Right, no, there weren't guys in the NWO who sucked per se. Maybe Horace Hogan, no offense, he was a great guy. but yeah, it got to be the lazy man's way of creative after a bit. And one thing I hated, I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but one thing I really hated was when they split the NWO into red and black. You were already
I was gone
by then, but still,
because the red and black thing was the Wolfpac, and I'm like, what? Wait a minute, the Wolfpac is Kevin Scott and I.
Right. And where that sucked was, and wouldn't work was, and the reason they did it was, to be blunt, Hulk was never going to give WCW its heat back. So they had to have NWO battle NWO, so Hulk didn't have to sacrifice anything because he had creative control, and that's what happened. And he was entitled to that contractually, but that's the way it went.
Yeah. I remember when we started doing the Wolfpac thing, like next week on TV, we show up and there's Hulk with brand new boots on that say Hogan's Wolfpac.
Well,
those boots didn't get worn again.
Well, that's a good segue because, and this is an outlandish theory, and you weren't quite in WCW by the time, but I said this back then too, to a little bit of consternation backstage. But I thought not me. I thought the minute Hogan joined the NWO, and don't get me wrong, that Bash at the Beach turn is one of the singular great moments in wrestling history. I've never seen a crowd react like that. It was just unbelievable, throwing garbage. It was maybe the last truly visceral response to a wrestling angle that I've ever seen live. But the problem was, once Hulk turned, and it did shoot the NWO to the moon, but once he turned, the NWO became about Hogan. It wasn't the group, it was the individual who was leading the group, and I don't think that helped.
I see what you mean. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I could see where you, like...
It was a catch-22 because he had to turn.
Yes, and also, like, I agree with what you're saying. I just think that it was worth it to have Hulk on the team.
I do, too. I do, too. And I think... So I don't want to put Hulk down because, like, I know people think I'm a Hogan basher. I'm not. I really like the guy a lot, and there's no denying what he did to wrestling. But I think it would have helped his various companies, and him a little bit too, if he had just allowed his character and his role to be managed a little bit by somebody else. Not a lot by somebody else, but just a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, here's one thing that
we did get him. We did talk him into, losing to Lex on Monday Nitro.
True. Well, he lost to Arn. He lost to Arn at one point too. Yeah. And then when this is way after you left, but when we had the New Blood angle where he lost to everybody. Like he lost to Kidman. He beat Kidman all around the arena.
Isn't that because of Russo's booking?
Well, let me describe this, and you tell me. And I'm not a Vince basher, but you're right.
I'm not either.
You can tell what he booked. There was a match on Nitro where Kidman bumped for Hogan for like 25 minutes. He got a fluke pin on Hogan, and then afterwards Hogan stuffed him in a dumpster backstage. I wouldn't exactly call that going over.
That is not going over. That's doing a job for someone, but that's not putting someone over. Now, there's two different things.
Now, one thing that was briefly planned for you in the NWO, and I've always wanted to ask you about this. You and I have never even talked about this, just casually. At one point, you were supposed to be the NWO's gopher. Hogan was ordering you around on screen, go get this 6, go answer the door 6.
I don't remember that, Mark.
You really don't remember that?
I absolutely do not remember that.
Oh, really? Yeah, you do.
I swear I don't.
Okay.
But it doesn't surprise me.
I don't know. Well, no, actually, I heard about that from Kev because it happened for 1 week. And then, everybody said, look, this just isn't going to happen. It's kind of the thing. Here's another Nash conversation from back then, which you may remember. Remember when Hogan put his kid under the dragon mask and had him in the hotel room when you guys were meeting? Remember that at all? Hogan had Nick, who was like 4 years old.
Oh, and that Cleveland thing where we did. Oh,
yes. By the way, Nick's dating a porn star now, so good for him. Tana Lee, you can follow her on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. Maybe Fight TV doesn't want me to say that. But anyway, Hogan said to Kevin, according to Kevin, but Kev doesn't know BS. Hogan goes, hey, brother, how about we bring Nasty Nick out there in the mask every week? And Kev said, how about no?
That sounds exactly like what he would say. Brother.
Now, I want to talk a bit about your career, too, because like I said earlier, you've had just such a diverse career. You've done so much in so many different places. Talk about your run with Jerry Lynn, which literally spanned your independent career in Minnesota and then Global Wrestling Federation. That was your first big feud, and really you couldn't have picked a better guy. I thought you two fit together perfectly.
Hey, do you guys know Jerry Lynn is? Yeah.
I wish Jerry was here. He should hear that. That's awesome.
I don't know if he's here today, but
he's not here, but he is at StarCast.
Yeah. Just one of the most underrated, and I don't even like to use that term underrated because it gets, thrown
Because the
out
boys don't underrate him.
No, because anyone that's ever been in the ring with Jerry Lynn, he's not underrated. He's really one of the unsung heroes in wrestling, like over the past, I don't know, couple of decades. And I would not be up here on this stage talking to y'all about all these cool things I've been a part of if it wasn't for the series of matches I had with Jerry Lynn. I'm so grateful to that guy. It meant so much to me to be able to thank him in my Hall of Fame speech, even though I forgot to thank so many people. Well, actually, I couldn't fit it all in, but Jerry, I just had amazing matches with him, and he went on to be an ECW world champion after that, and I thought he had a great run as ROH champion as well.
No question. And then Sean moved, of course, to WWE after Global, and who can forget you beating Scott Hall?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you were destined for bigger and better sooner or later, but very rarely does one guy get made in a singular moment like that. It was just electric, wasn't it?
It was the most important moment of my career. Hands down, nothing even comes close.
What was the planning like going up to that match? Were you surprised to hear what was going to happen? And, whose idea was that? I know Scott was all for it at the time, obviously.
It was Vince and Pat called me. I had my tryout, and then I was waiting, it seemed like forever before they called me. Matter of fact, I didn't know if they were going to end up calling me after a while. They ran Vince another time. I swear to God, I was on the phone with, no, it wasn't that time. I was going to say I was on the phone with Wade Keller again.
Well, now we know who stooged for Wade Keller.
I have not made it. When it comes to my relationship with Wade, I have not made any bones about it because the coverage he gave me coming up in Minnesota. And all
with
that.
Jerry Lynn,
yes,
run, yeah.
with Jerry Lynn, since we're talking about Jerry Lynn, Wade Keller's coverage of me was integral in me becoming a success.
Now,
I was talking to Vince called me and he ran the whole thing by me and he was like, "How's that sound?" I was like, "What do you mean, how's that sound?" He tells me I'm going to beat Razor Ramon and, lays the whole thing out and it was just, I couldn't really believe it because I just thought that it was about the best way a person could ever be brought in compared to how everyone was brought in back then. The average person was, we'll give him a couple of weeks of vignettes and then we'll give him some squash matches on TV and he can get over. Or he can't. And they made sure I got over. All I had to do was just, move out of the way and do one moonsault.
And what's that moment like?
The shitty moonsault at that.
Well, what's that moment like?
Hey, am I the only one? Come on, you guys. Does not look like Scott and I are 69 in each other in that? Come on, right? No one ever says it, but they're all thinking that, right?
Now that you mention it.
What do you mean now that you mention it? Like the first time you ever thought of it?
No, I always think in only the purest terms when it comes to wrestling in your career, Sean.
Okay.
Now, what was it like, though, when that moment occurred? When you actually beat Scott, all that came to fruition, and by the crowd reaction, you had to know it meant so much.
I'm like, we're off to the races. I was still really, I'm like 20. I maybe just turned 20, I think. I was still so new.
Were you only 20 then?
Yeah.
See, I always say with Sean, how old are you now?
40. I'll be 47 in July
13th. We always used to say that, something wrong? Could you hear me then? Could you hear me now? Okay, business as usual. We always used to kid around that, when Sean was in WCW, that he just turned 29 because he started his career when he was 11.
Yeah.
How old were you when you started?
I was 15.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not unheard of these days, but back then, yeah, it was. Yeah.
So then you know things are going to go great. And, what were the next significant moments in your career at WWE? Because obviously that was followed up upon or it would have meant nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I got wins over, $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. And all of that was to see, okay, it's been explained, but it wasn't just about bringing me in and making the 1, 2, 3 kid. That thing was designed for two purposes, and actually the main one, or just as important, was to turn Razor Ramon into a babyface, and it did just that. And then we set up the, Scott versus DiBiase at SummerSlam, and then I worked with the IRS, and I had been such a dipshit on the road, and I was cutting up and being the class clown and trying to fit in, and they had to put me in my place, and my push came to an end at SummerSlam '93.
And not for the first time for those reasons either, right? Now, we're going to get back to some more about the Monday Night Wars in a minute, but I want to talk to Sean about the state of wrestling today as well. You still watch all the time, right? You're still a fan.
Yes. Yeah.
What's your take on All Elite Wrestling, which is obviously the backdrop for StarCast and the reason we're all here? Because, as I said in my opening remarks, I think this is wrestling's last stand. I don't want to be melodramatic, but I think if with the Khan family's money and some of the expertise involved, I think TNT putting wrestling back on its programming, I think if AEW doesn't succeed, we'll probably never see a solid number 2 promotion in America again. I think this is, if it's not the last chance, it's the last best chance.
Wow, since you put it that way.
A little melodramatic, but
shit. I hope they don't screw up.
Well, I hope they don't screw up, too, because it's always better for the boys when there's 2 places.
Yeah,
and that's no knock on Ring of Honor or Impact, but, they're the little engines that can't, to be perfectly honest. They have some great talent, and I watch their shows, but we're talking about a number 2 that can compete here.
Wow, when you get TNT on board and a weekly show on that network, they got rid of wrestling and didn't want anything to do with it again.
There's some irony, isn't there?
Yeah. So I look. They have a fresh mind mixed with they got some good experienced people involved in this, but it's the mentality and the new ideas and the new way of thinking. And I really hope it works. I have a good feeling about it.
I do too. I do too.
I mean,
how about you guys?
Yeah.
Well,
I honestly and I said this. I think CM Punk's going to show up eventually. I might be going out on a limb and saying
eventually is a long time, but I would be more shocked if he didn't. I would be more shocked if we're all sitting here 3 years from now at Starcase 9 or whatever. I would be shocked if he's not there by then.
Yeah. I just think it'd be hard for him to sit this out. When he said, "I'm leaving wrestling and I'm not coming back," this wasn't what was going on. There was no AEW in the picture. None of that. So
well, and it's also CM Punk going there would be very important. But I think it's worth noting too that guys they have like Chris Jericho, who's I think 48 now. And I'm not sure how old Kenny Omega is. He's brilliant, but I think he's in his 30s.
I think he's in his mid-30s.
I think it's important that while those guys get people in the door, whether it's Omega, Jericho, CM Punk, if he comes, they've got to build younger guys while the eyes are upon Jericho, Omega, and whoever. And I think they have some good young talent. This kid, Sammy Guevara, you guys have seen him, yeah? Yes. I think he's brilliant. I think all he's ever needed is TV. So my hope for their creative process is that they don't just, push the old guys and build the old guys. I hope that they, frankly, use the old guys to build the young guys.
I don't know if there are enough old guys for them to build anything around, to be honest with you.
The guys they do have, though.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
You could have one last run. We always talk about that's a great phrase in wrestling, by the way. One last run.
There isn't a wrestler alive that's not in a wheelchair, and even half the ones that are in a wheelchair now that will not tell you that they don't have one last run in them.
There you go.
Every one of us. Me personally, I prefer mine to be a sprint instead of a marathon.
What do you think? One thing I'm curious to see that happens with AEW is they've brought in some guys who I think are just marvelous talents. Like Cody Rhodes is a great talent. He was a mid-card guy in WWE, but deserved a lot better.
They used him as a mid-card
right,
guy.
that's just what they gave him,
Yes.
but he's much better than a mid-card guy. The Young Bucks are not on the national consciousness. They've done great in Japan and with Ring of Honor, but still the casual wrestling fan really isn't aware who they are. And I think those guys can catch fire in this promotion with the exposure with TNT, but until they do, you never really know, do you?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's just like anything else. I mean, just, showing up to the show, like, and if, what's going to be, how's the turnout going to be? I wonder what the gate's going to be tonight, or, I hope people buy what we want, we're trying to sell them. I just, they've done it on the scale they've done it on now so well. Right. I can't imagine it not being able to be.
Me too. Me too.
I mean, because so many things that are huge now in pop culture started out as a niche,
Right.
know?
It started out on social media.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, since social media has been around, but yeah.
Well, right. It continues on social media. Like the Being the Elite show is really the primary promotional vehicle so far for all elite wrestling. But now it has to get bigger. It has to get a bit better. And until it does, we really don't know for sure. But I'm really rooting for them. And I think so far the right pieces are in place.
Yeah. Hey, so their show is going to be on Friday?
I don't know if that's. Do you guys know? Has that been officially decided yet? No, I heard Tuesday's a no-go because they copyrighted Tuesday Night Dynamite, right? I think that's a no-go, so I'm not sure when it's going to be.
So it's not going to be like the Monday Night Wars, like head-to-head, but maybe there'll be, some wrestling, some pretty, heated wrestling wars going on here. I tell you what. If people ask me, things, and I'm like, look, okay, of course, like the WWE talent isn't going to run around the locker rooms and run around TVs over there going, woohoo, AEW, but everyone's on the down low. Everyone's got to be ecstatic about all this.
Actually, I think a few guys are running around doing what you described, like the Revival, right? If the Revival had their way, they'd be at MGM Grand Garden Arena tonight. With Arn Anderson managing, might I add. So, I'm curious to see how it plays out. Now, a few other things I want to go over with the Monday Night War show. And then we have Dan St. Germain, who's here, that's going to take some questions from you guys.
I thought it was Taylor. I thought it was Taylor Williamson, but it might be.
It says Dan St. Germain on my booking sheet. But whoever has a mic out there is our friend, and we'll ask some great questions in a few minutes, I'm sure. But you were with WWE when Lex Luger showed up on the first Nitro.
Yeah. I think I was traveling with him up in like Moncton, up in the
New
Maritime.
Brunswick,
yeah, on the shows that we were on before, and then he went home, and then because I lived in Minneapolis at the time, I was there, and I ran into him there.
Now,
it was kind of weird.
Did you have any inkling Lex was going to do that? Did anybody?
No.
Because very rarely do we get a total surprise in pro wrestling. That was.
He never complained that he was unhappy. He wasn't one of those guys that walked around the dressing room like pouting and making other people miserable because he was miserable. You never would have.
Like we were.
At times.
Yeah, but he just, you're right, he baby-faced his way out the door, didn't he?
Yeah.
Now, when he showed up on Nitro, what was the reaction in the Raw dressing room when you guys found out?
We were surprised, and no one was mad at Lex, that's for sure.
Well, right, because you want to cut the best deal for yourself, but we'll get to that in a minute. I'm not sure he did, but so there was no sense of fear at that point, no sense of impending problems.
Not really. No.
What about among management?
There was no fear, but people were starting to go, oh, maybe they're throwing some money around.
Yeah. And maybe they're at least going to make a legitimate try.
Yeah. So it wasn't like, okay, they're going to give WWE a run for their money. What it was, that's another play. Like we could maybe go get guaranteed money. We weren't getting guaranteed money.
Right. You were
WWE was not. We weren't getting guaranteed money. If we didn't work, we didn't get paid.
Right, and let's be honest, Vince doesn't make you guys the books available to you guys. So, I've always said this about WWE. Not that guys can't get a great opportunity up there and make a lot of money, but he pretty much pays you what he feels like, right?
It's arbitrary.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like a certain kind of a scale they use, but, you know, I mean, you could talk to JR about that. JR was a great payoff guy for me.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Now here's a story I always heard, and I'm not sure either of us knows the answer. Maybe one of you guys do, but in that Nitro book, have you read the Nitro book?
No, but Eric put it over.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I did a thing here the other day, yesterday, with the guy who wrote it, Guy Evans, I think his name is, and I said, how dare you write an accurate book about the Monday Night Wars? What a jerk. But he says that Lex took a lot less money to come to WCW because he wanted out of WWE so bad. He said that he was making $350 in New York and took $150 in Atlanta. I just find that so hard to believe, especially given that he burned a bridge forever, and he did with WWE.
And for him to say he made $350 in New York, that must have been what he ended up making at the end of the year, and not his guarantee, because we weren't getting guarantees. Although Lex, I think, got a guarantee from the WBF.
Oh, that's right.
Yes,
that's right. So maybe he was.
Do you guys
still
remember
on
the WBF? World Bodybuilding? No, not too many of you.
Gee, no wonder it went out of
Federation?
business.
Anyone, Bueller?
Well, so I always wondered about that, and you know, since that story broke, I've not had a chance to ask Lex, but that seems frankly out of character for any wrestler, let alone him.
It sounds like that sounds like the one Eric. That sounds like the story Eric paints, and I have not heard Lex contradict it or deny it. I think it's probably true.
Now, on that first Nitro, and by the way, I'm hosting a panel tomorrow about the life and times of Brian Pillman, which I hope most of you can attend. It'll be
people over here, and I'm got my head facing this way.
It'll be tough for me because Brian and I were good friends, but I'm looking forward to it. But the first match ever on Nitro was Brian Pillman against Jushin Thunder Liger.
Yeah.
And that really kind of set the template for Nitro, didn't it, Sean? You had the big surprise and the cruiserweight action, and really that's a formula that Nitro rode for many years.
Yeah. And they brought in all the luchadors from from Mexico, and most, a lot of those were what rounded out the cruiserweight division.
Right.
Yeah, I thought they did cruiserweights way better than WWE any day of the week, right?
Oh, I thought that was. What do you guys think? I thought that was the primary period for lighter weight wrestlers in wrestling history, was the way WCW used and pushed the cruiserweights, because guys like Kevin Sullivan and Eric Bischoff saw the value in just, you can't have too much talking, which I think we have in wrestling these days. You can't have too many big guys, although, honestly, I think we need a few more larger-than-life guys. But WCW filled the gaps with a lot of action with charismatic lighter-weight wrestlers. I thought that worked magnificently.
Yeah. Although it was kind of sad for me to see how they used some of them that were big names in Mexico, and then they were just getting jobbed out and just...
like Psycho and
Silver
guys, King, the late Silver King who just passed away. Yeah, you're right. That wasn't one of my...
And and then they would, there was no respect for the traditions of the mask, and they just had Ray take his mask off.
And Hoovy.
Yeah, that was bullshit.
Of course, Hoovy later took everything off and ran naked through the hotel lobby in Australia. I was witness to that. I could probably do an entire podcast or something about that. Now, when Nitro started to take off, and you're still in WWE at that point, what was the reaction like when it started to become a legitimate threat? And do you think it changed the product in WWE at all? Did it inspire the Attitude Era?
Well, for sure it's inspired the Attitude Era, because without the NWO, there wouldn't have been a DX, and so all that was really what the Attitude Era was about. So, yeah, for sure. And I was out, when all that curtain calls, when the curtain call happened,
you were hurt then.
I was not hurt. I was in drug rehab.
Let's just say hurt.
I was hurt. Yeah, I was hurt.
Which actually, being in drug rehab never does anyone a favor, but maybe it's better you weren't there for the curtain call.
Yeah, probably.
There was some hell to pay for that, obviously.
Yeah. That was... Boy, Hunter really paid the price. Well, he got the last laugh on that one, didn't he?
Well, it's amazing to think, though, you're right, that they kind of shit on Hunter then for that, and look at him now.
Yeah, well, he stayed the course.
Yeah.
He could have said, fuck this, and quit, too.
But instead, he stayed and married well.
Yes.
But I always thought that if WCW hadn't pushed with the NWO, and if ECW hadn't come along with kind of like that radicalized way of doing wrestling, that R-rated version, I think those kind of got combined to inspire the Attitude Era. Not that WWE stole that, and not that their creative process wasn't brilliant, but still, in wrestling, everybody steals from everybody. It's called inspiration, in lieu of a better word, but I thought that's kind of what added up to the Attitude Era.
That's a pretty accurate statement, I think.
Would it be better if wrestling was still that way?
I just, people talk about it like that, and I look back on it with a lot of fond memories, and I just think that times have changed, and it's not really the way to go altogether right now. I mean, some of the elements of it, yeah, but I mean, we've moved forward in our thinking a little.
And I think that's
some of the ways
better.
we used to present women, things like that.
Funny you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you about that next. What is your take on the way women are used in wrestling these days? Because let's face it, the dirty old man and all of us enjoyed all the bra and panties matches back then. But if you want to look at it from a wrestling perspective, an action perspective, a storyline perspective, and even a human perspective, I think the way that WWE uses women right now is ideal. And I think, honestly, it's the most exciting part of their television program.
Yeah, for sure. What do you guys think of the ladies? Yeah, I'm a big fan. Yeah. Somebody was asking me the other day on a show, they were asking me if anyone from the older, generation of ladies, from maybe my generation could hang with the ladies today. And I was like, Medusa all day long.
I think Lita, too.
Oh, for sure. But, Medusa was a little bit before Lita. And well, obviously Lita, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, Medusa was the one that came to mind. I just remember her. They featured her, and they would bring. It was kind of like the little guys.
The little people.
Yeah, the little.
Yeah, we
people.
call them little people now. That's correct.
They wouldn't have a whole roster. It would just be one or two.
2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like that with the ladies back then.
Yeah, that's right. Well, for the longest time in WWE, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, it was Sable, Sonny, and Terry Runnels, correct? And that was it.
Oh, Jacqueline. And then they brought Ivory.
Yeah, well, eventually it expanded, but I agree. There were a lot of women back then that I think could have gone in WWE today. I told this story on somebody's podcast yesterday, but just briefly. And you may not know this story, but during the Russo era of booking, and again, I'm not bashing the guy, but it was the time for crazy stuff in WCW. You guys all remember. Remember the thing where I wrestled Gene? Of course you do. It was shit. And Pam Paulshock nudge-shotted me to end the match. I was supposed to wrestle her the next week, and I would have pinned her, and I would have declared myself intergender champion like Andy Kaufman. And then, as Vince Russo put it now, okay, you wrestle a few more girls the next couple weeks, and then in 3 weeks, Medusa's going to kick the shit out of you. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, she works Japan, bro. She works real stiff. She's going to kick the shit out of you. She can't help it. We need you to take one for the team. And I talked to Deuce that night, and I go, hey, did you hear about this? And she goes, yeah. She goes, I'm not crazy about it. I go, I'm not crazy about it either, especially you kicking the shit out of me. And she goes, well, you know me, dear. I just can't help myself. But standards and practices put an end to that. And
didn't she end up doing something to Colonel Parker?
I think she did kick the shit out of him instead.
German suplexed him.
Yeah, better him than me. But don't forget, like I mentioned, she worked in Japan. Did any of you see her work in Japan on video or anything like that back then? She was great, right? And she was stiff.
Yeah.
My God. Now, staying with Monday night, we'll get to some questions here in just a few moments.
Yeah, I want to get some quick, because at the last StarCast, we sat up there and we talked and didn't get to the people and that. And I want to make sure we get to everyone.
Let me check my antiquated cell phone. We'll do 3 more minutes and take questions.
Okay.
Is Dan here?
Taylor, hi, I'm
Taylor, you were right.
That's right.
Taylor, my apologies. I have an antiquated booking sheet. It's much like WCW, where they gave me the wrong booking sheet because they didn't trust me.
Hey, is everyone familiar with Taylor Williamson from America's Got Talent? Yeah.
Thank you. Dan St. Germain was booked, but he got beat up backstage by Braun Strowman.
By this time, you're in WWE. When did you know the tide had turned Not that WCW was going to go out of business, but when did you know that you guys were on top again and there was no going back?
Honestly, I felt like it the day we did the invasion. I just felt like the momentum was there, and like regardless of whether like the public could see it, like we saw it, I saw it. Like
I think the public saw it too, and maybe didn't just know it yet. If that makes any sense.
Yes.
A lot of that happens in wrestling sometimes is subliminal. When something hits, when an angle sticks, wouldn't you agree, Sean, that sometimes it might take weeks or months to really pay off?
Sure.
But eventually it does. That's like with WCW. Honestly, we were doing TV that wasn't terrific before the rating really shrunk. It just takes a while to snowball, be that good or bad. I thought, I don't know, I thought a lot of the stuff where we tried to reinvent the NWO, I thought we tried to recycle stuff too often instead of trying to break some new ground. And I think that always hurts, don't you? I don't think you can really go home again, do something from back when, unless it's clearly nostalgia-based.
Absolutely. Yes. It was hard because, so I was back there, we were working so much, I didn't get a chance to see WCW product from that point. Because there's like all this shit you're talking about, like intergender, like Russo, White, like booking stuff, like I'm not familiar with hardly any of that. Like I said earlier, I broadcast a Viagra on a pole match. Yeah.
Which harkened back to so many great Viagra on a pole matches. I think Vern Gagne and Nick Bockwinkel had one at one point. But it was, you see, here's the thing, and actually all the panels I've been on this weekend that talked about Nitro, I was on with Eric and the book's author yesterday. We never got to talk about the Russo era because we ran out of time. So let me just sum that up. Then we'll get to Taylor with some questions. But see, I like Russo. I think he's a good guy. He always treated me very well. Okay, you could have give and take with him. He had two problems. He needed an editor very badly, which he had in New York with Vince McMahon. Okay, Vince would have 10 ideas, and 4 were really good, but all 10 would get on TV. And that would start to catch up after a bit. And the other was, and he's going to hate me for saying this, but him and Ed Ferrara, his writing partner, right? They weren't funny. Okay, I told them that at a production meeting once. They just weren't funny. They would put stuff on TV that they thought was hilarious. But they just weren't funny. What they are is they're New York City, mean-spirited, laugh at this fucking asshole funny. But that doesn't translate to TV. You people from New York, you know what I'm talking about. But like again, you've dealt with Vince. I think he's an okay guy, and I think he has some great ideas, but he desperately needs an editor, and hey, maybe we all do.
Yeah, and that was the thing. I mean, well, that was the thing in WWE. That was why when he left, and he was valuable, obviously.
No question.
Obviously, when he left, no, we weren't worried at all. I mean, no one even skipped a beat. And it's not because he didn't bring a ton to the table. I mean, he deserves a lot of credit. Here's what I say about Vince. He gives himself too much credit, and everyone else doesn't give him enough credit.
Amen. I
agree with that. Somewhere in the middle.
And when Vince came to work for us, to be honest, we thought it was the beginning of the, climbing back those golden stairs to the top.
Wow.
The one thing he did that was really good right away, though, was he brought in like that Crash TV with real short segments and, bang, 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 bang. I got to tell you, I like that style of wrestling TV. And when you first witness it, it seems great, doesn't it? Because it's like something's happening every 90 seconds.
Yeah, and then if something sucks, it's over with fairly quick.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, let's take some questions. Taylor Williamson, we love Taylor. If you have a question, stick your hand up, and Sean Waltman or myself will be more than happy to answer.
I love you guys. It's an honor to be with you guys. Our first question from Sean from Las Vegas, right in front of you in the back.
Where?
Right here in the
we
deep.
Can't see
right
anybody.
Here in the center.
All right.
So I have a question for Sean. Sean, Eric Bischoff has said that DX is nothing but a blatant ripoff of the NWO. And you being with both factions, can you give me your insight of what he really meant to say, or what you can really say in your words? And in your own heart, what faction are you mostly from, DX or NWO?
Yeah. I understand why Eric says that, because DX was WWE's answer to the NWO.
I wouldn't say copy.
It's not. And I guess the reason why it might feel like that way to him is because both the NWO and DX all came from the Click.
Yes.
You know, it was all Kevin Scott and Sean and myself and Paul, and
A similar attitude.
yes, it was the attitude that was similar, and I guess, and maybe just because of this. It was just their answer. It wasn't a copy, a blatant copy.
I think
because the feel was different. We had a different vibe.
I think copy's unfair. I think to coin a phrase, maybe cut from the same cloth is more fair.
Yeah, NWO, we were like a gang of thugs, right? And we would drive by. We would bum rush Roddy Piper in his dressing room, wearing bandanas over our faces.
I think that really happened once.
Yeah, it did. Oh, that one in Boston, yeah.
That's right.
People are going, what are they talking about?
Taylor, who do we got next?
Next, we got Jeffrey from Los Angeles in the front, fifth row in front of you.
Hey, did I answer Sean's question good enough?
I thought you did a great job.
I don't care what you thought. I care what he thought, Taylor. I do care what you think, Taylor. I love you.
I care about you too. Sean, are you okay? He said thank you. He didn't answer the question
Right
though. But. All right, Jeffrey from Los Angeles. What's up, man?
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for coming. Mark, still the greatest looking man on television.
Greatest looking fat man. Get it right.
For Sean, probably my favorite DX X-PAc era line was probably "Your ass is grass and I'm gonna smoke it."
Yeah.
Was that your line?
It was all mine, yes. Yeah.
How could you think that was anybody else's line?
Yeah. Although, then you get the occasional asshole that comes up to you and says, "You smoke ass?" It's a fucking metaphor, dipshit.
Keep them coming, Taylor.
All right, we got Jake from North Dakota, stage front row, stage left.
Hey, man.
We can actually see him.
So my question is, there's a lot of belts in WWE right now, and we all know that, and that's probably why it's so watered down. But in the Attitude Era and Monday Night Wars, they got the TV belt helped put Booker T over, the IC title helped put Rock and Triple H over. Why do you think they aren't using those mid-card belts to put those guys at the next tier?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know
That's
either.
a good question.
That's
I don't think that, I just don't think they even look at those championships in that light anymore.
Never mind those championships, Sean. I don't know what you guys think. And boy, there was a big time wrestler, a recently retired guy. Oh no, actually, excuse me. Jim Ross said this in an interview just the other day. We've never been in an era where championships meant less.
That's right. I saw that on his Twitter feed. Yeah, yeah. I personally, I think NXT does a good job with it.
Well, and that's the ironic part. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah.
NXT promotes wrestling like I prefer to see it and like it used to be. But that sounded like Smoky Mountain Wrestling's catchphrase, didn't it?
Wow, it really goes to it.
But I can't believe that they don't take that same philosophy they do in NXT in protecting the championships and move that up to WWE.
All right.
Excuse me?
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah, that's a good point. The guy, Paul Levesque controls NXT more than he does, and that's true.
Without a doubt. That's his, and he controls that, and Vince controls the main roster stuff, and it's obvious.
Let's be honest. Vince is how old, Sean? 74?
73, I think.
Yeah,
73, 74.
It would be better. I don't want to say he should get out of the way because he's the mad scientist and he made everything. But he needs to cede a little bit of authority because I think, you've known Paul longer and better than me, but I know him a little bit too. I was lucky enough that when Rick was on his retirement tour at WWE, I took a couple weeks off and made a bunch of towns in Pennsylvania and Ohio with Rick, and I drove with Paul because he was at the wheel because unlike the other two of us, he didn't drink. And he's a brilliant wrestling mind. Just his way to merge new school and old school, his timing is just incredible. I see a silhouette in the back trying to signal to us. What are you signaling?
Maybe he was just stretching his arms.
Oh, okay. That's fine. By the way, I want to give thanks. The producer of this segment is, does everybody remember Joel Gertner in ECW?
Yeah. Joel's great, and he was the guy that I chewed out for distracting me up at the front.
Yeah,
I was just kidding with Joel, by the way.
Joel's a real talent. It's a pleasure. And it's a pleasure for me to be working with him. So give it up one more time for Joel Gertner.
Yes.
He is the peeled banana in your, wait, how's it go? Your
I
peeled
don't
banana
know.
in your fruit salad of love. Taylor, where are we at?
I'm really uncomfortable with that, what you just said. But next question is from Malik from Las Vegas.
Pac,
Yeah.
what is your favorite off-camera memory with DX or the NWO?
Oh, boy.
Shit. I just can't.
No, you can't.
Man, it would have to, like, when you throw a question out there like that, for me, you gotta understand the way my brain works now. I kind of need you to hone in a little bit, like, in a more specific way, so I can access that information in my brain.
Let me take a shot at why it's tough to answer.
It's like telling me what's your favorite song. Oh my God, there's a million songs.
Well,
that I like.
you said off camera, right? Yeah. You see, here's the problem. I've been approached by publishing companies myself to write like a tell-all expose on wrestling.
Yeah.
Because you know what I witnessed and what I heard about and all that stuff. But I don't do it because if I wrote it the way it needed to be written, I would end like my friends' marriages, and stuff like that. I'm just not going to do that. And if I wrote it any other way, it would suck. And I don't want it to be, something that sucks, so I just ignore it. So maybe we better not answer that question.
Yeah, like the time that Mark hooked me up with Jenna Jameson.
Oh, that's true. We can tell that, right?
My girlfriend probably doesn't want to hear that.
Okay, well, it's true. I did, and it was great. Next question.
Next question, front row, right over
Hey,
here.
does he want another question since I couldn't really answer that one?
I have a question.
No, the other guy. The guy that
He's fine. It's Taylor. I have a question. It's my turn.
Sorry.
He's in wrestling 10 minutes. He's killing the fans.
Wait, Mark, can you hook me up with Jenna Jameson?
Yeah, probably.
Great.
Since you struck out with Heidi Klum.
Wow. Too soon, man.
Once a heel, always a heel.
Next question, Jake from San Francisco.
Jake, what up?
Please be nicer to me than this guy just was.
Boy, I'm being a real dick to Taylor today. Sorry, Taylor.
I love it. Are we kidding? Everyone, this is the greatest moment of my life. Are we kidding? Okay.
Agreed wholeheartedly. Hey, thank you so much for being here. First question, it's a two-parter. What town have you been to that has the best reefer? And second question.
By the way, I'm sorry. He's holding a vape pen right now while he's asking me this. I'm sorry.
That's a decent question.
Do you want us to hit the reefer?
It used to. I'm going to tell you what it used to be when I was on the road. It used to be Vancouver. Yeah, Vancouver. Here in the States, whenever we came out to LA, there was a guy named Freddie that would always come hook us up with this shit called Trainwreck.
Why do I think Boston, too?
Huh?
Why do I think Boston, too?
Yeah, for weed, nah.
Really?
Yeah. What about San Francisco? Yeah, actually, yeah. Yeah, it's just we didn't know, we didn't have a Freddie up in San Francisco. He was in L.A.
Well, Pittsburgh sucks, so I had nothing to worry about at airport security.
But these days, it's just incredible where that, I mean, I don't want to get off on the weed thing because, but it's just, well, I mean, I'm just really happy with the way things are going in this country when it comes to that, the stigma is, yeah. And I'm not like, oh, everyone should get high. Everyone, I'm not like the Cheech and Chong guy anymore. But it's just ridiculous. People shouldn't be going to jail for that. And and it's a great matter. It's been like, just real quick, it's been an integral part of my recovery program. That's kept me really healthy and mentally stable and not getting fucked up on drugs and alcohol. So yeah.
Taylor, who we got?
Right next to him, we got Jason from South Dakota. One of my favorites.
Pierre.
Yeah.
That's the capital.
It is.
Yes, I knew those things.
Look at Sean's doing Q&A with you.
Hey, the South Dakota is where the Wolf-Pac was born.
There you go.
Yes. Just real quick, can I tell you? Yeah. And remember, keep your question though. Okay. Yeah. So what was that fucking Hog Wild?
Road Wild.
Road Wild.
At Sturgis, South Dakota.
Sturgis. Yeah, it was. They let me go. So after the curtain call, like I got put in rehab. I was in rehab, and then they let me out of my contract, and that's when I come to WCW. But they didn't actually give me my release yet, and so WCW brought me to Sturgis, but they were waiting for my release, and they didn't get it right. So
I remember that.
But Bill Otten, who's this photographer from Florida, I've known since I was a kid, and he shoots for all the Japanese magazines. He came with us to Mount Rushmore and all these little sites and took a bunch of pictures with us and ended up in the Japanese magazines, and the Wolfpac was born that day. So anyways, that little story that maybe some of you didn't really care to hear.
So my question kind of with that is, how much free reign during that era did you have for your segments and the gimmicks and things like that? And do you wish that people of today had more free reign for their scripts and gimmicks and things that they do?
You mean in like the WWE Attitude Era?
Yeah. How much free reign did you have during that era?
Tons. And I don't know if everyone had tons of free reign, but you know, a lot of it was just, hey, here's what we're thinking about doing, and then they just give us, and then, you know, when it comes to what we said, or like, you know, even especially what we did in our match, no one was like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing for the finish? And like, it was totally different then. And, you know, you could cultivate your own character and you know, yeah, it was just, you had so much freedom. And of course it would be better if that was the case nowadays. I think you would have much better characters, you know, yeah. I think it's obvious, right?
I think that the more input that the performer has into his character, the more honest the character will be. And I think one thing that I'm very encouraged here about All Elite Wrestling is they're not scripting the promos. They're going to give the performer bullet points. And I think, put it this way, you look at WWE, all their promos sound like they're coming out of the same voice, except when Chris Jericho's there, because he won't do that. He insists on bullet points. You have to let the performer take on and build upon his own personality.
And another thing that's, to add to what he's saying, another thing that's incredibly important as a performer is to feel like you have skin in the game. And if you don't have input into what you're doing, it's just like, you know, I'm not as into doing it as I would be otherwise. And you can tell.
Actually, I have a story about that I just heard. Does anybody remember a guy who worked for WCW named Johnny Swinger?
Oh, yeah.
Lukewarm applause for Johnny Swinger. I wish he were here. And there's a story. Remember when they picked up the contracts of the lower-paid WCW guys after the buyout, WWE,
yes.
right? Johnny Swinger was at a taping, and he was cutting some promos pre-show. And his entire promo was scripted. Stephanie gave it to him. Stephanie was the producer, which won't end well for our friend Johnny Swinger. And she handed the promo, and he memorized it. And he cut the promo, and, you know, it was fine. He got it word for word. And afterwards, they watched it back, and Stephanie said to Johnny, I don't believe a word you said. And Johnny said, well, that's because it's not my words. And she fired him, but it was still a good thing to say.
Yeah. Wow.
That's actually...
I did not know that
Everything
story.
there is absolutely true. Taylor, bring it on.
All right, this will be the last question that I will be asking.
Why? Because you got to go, right?
I have to go moderate another
Yeah.
thing. Hashtag StarCast.
Well, does that mean we're out of time? I don't have Waltman here.
No, you have like 10 more minutes after this.
Who's gonna take the questions?
I'll do it.
You just have to people have to yell really loud. Okay.
Tell you what,
I'll figure it out.
Yes.
It's not my job. All right. John from Tucson, Arizona.
Hey, Pac, big fan,
All right,
man,
John.
over here. Got a quick question, though. Regarding the DX invasion at the Norfolk Scope.
Yes.
Just wanted to know if you knew, like, any heat from the WCW stars that you knew specifically that had about that?
No, actually, we thought it was kind of, I'm not a star, but I thought it was kind of funny.
Specifically Kevin Nash or Scott Hall, like, what were their reactions towards that angle?
They loved it. Everyone I know loved it. Everyone thought it was hilarious. I mean, some of them were trying to actually get them to open the door back up just to see what would happen. So, no, and honestly, I mean, the ones, yeah, no, it wasn't anything I worried about even. It was just, I mean, maybe you should have, I don't know.
No, why would you
fuck
worry
that.
about it? That's
No.
business, right?
Yeah. It was good for everyone.
All right, with Taylor having left, if you have a question, why don't you come up here to the
No, they don't have to do that. Mooney will handle it here. Mooney's here. So
Who's that?
Sean Mooney, everybody.
Hey!
All right.
Mooney,
Mooney. All right. All right. We got another question here? Oh, way over there. Anybody on this side? Okay. What's your name?
Ryan from Parts Unknown.
Hey, man.
You were part of two of the big impersonation skits on Nitro and on Raw.
I'm not familiar with what you're talking about.
When you dressed up as Ric Flair and as Ms. Ark Henry.
Yes.
The one on WCW, it drew a lot of heat. I was wondering, was it something you were really enjoyed or something you guys were pushed to do?
Are you talking about the Four Horsemen?
Yeah, the Four Horsemen impersonation.
It was. I just remember showing up and you know, a lot of people don't. They'd be surprised to know that was a Terry Taylor idea, actually, and Terry was Rick's friend. So.
Well, I don't think. I mean, I can understand why Arn was upset. I really can. I mean,
I can.
That doesn't mean I hated the skit, but I can understand why Arn was upset. I thought, as far as the way it portrayed everybody else, it was absolutely harmless.
Yeah, and especially I thought my Ric Flair was really good because I grew up. Plus, I had a little bit of a Minnesota accent still. I could, because Rick still has one if you listen to it. Real close.
Does.
And I had watched Rick, and I knew how he laughed. I knew the cadence of how he talked, and I was just like, I could become Ric Flair. And I did that better than I do me.
Well, and if I recall, Rick's daughter Megan, who's here with Conrad, loved it.
Yes.
So there you go.
Actually came up. How'd you know? She came up and told me that in a bar one night.
She said she loved it.
Yeah.
She was there, I think.
Wow.
Or was she? It's a long time ago. But you know, if I can throw in,
I was hoping if the Ric Flair roast was going to happen, I was going to do that, dress up like that again.
Well, you still can. I think it's going to happen sooner or later. By the way, if you want to look forward to StarCast 3, assuming I'm invited back, I would have owned the Ric Flair roast and quite possibly ended my radio career in those 10 minutes. So look forward to that. But like I said about this skit, I'll be honest, I didn't like the way it portrayed Arn, but I got it, and that was when wrestling was in its nothing is sacred period.
That's right. And look, okay, I thought it was great, okay? And I thought how heavy it was and how much it pissed them off was great and so they actually had to change the main event of War Games and put us in it versus the Horsemen,
right, because of that.
Yes. But the Horsemen never got theirs back. That was the only thing that was bullshit about all that.
Well, right, they should have run down at some point.
They should have gotten their comeuppance back. They should have gotten their paybacks.
Right.
And they never did. And that's where that whole thing ended up being bullshit, in my opinion.
Sean?
All right, Sean, you don't want to give us a little flair? I want to hear it.
You want to imitate Flair?
Oh, I can't, no.
No?
Yeah.
I got to have the nose.
You have to wait for it.
The nose and the
You got to be in character.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
You could do a woo. All right, Joe's got a question.
Just remember, there was part of it where I come out and I go, I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, and I don't know why. And, and that was because, that was a little inside jab, because when Flair was in New York, and he would do his promos, and he would yell and scream like that, and Vince would get hot and goes, "What is he yelling for? It's fucking Flair. What do you mean?"
One of my favorite Flair promos was one line. This is back in WCW. Steamboat and Luger were feuding, and Luger came out and gave this very reasoned promo, which he was very good at, you'll recall. He said, "Steamboat, there is not a better wrestler on the face of the earth than you. You are a good small wrestler, but I'm just as good as you. And I'm a good big wrestler." And we all know Steamboat, a good big man will beat a good little man every time. Flair comes out for the next interview and just ad-libs, "Woo, Luger, whoever said you were a good big man?"
He was good.
He was good.
Actually, I like working with Lex. He had his things he did,
but that's still
funny,
a good
though.
line.
That's great.
You can't let the truth get in the way of a good line. Yeah. Sean?
All right, now we got Joe.
Hey, Mark, I had a quick question for you. I was listening to Eric Bischoff got asked a question on a podcast or something like that about an angle that you did with Tank Abbott back in WCW.
I just saw Tank last night.
Yeah.
I just saw him.
Well, he said that that was Russo's idea, and that he could have kind of put the kibosh on that, but he said if he did that, Russo was a little sensitive about shutting him down on a lot of things, and I was just curious your memories on that.
Well, that
And
Russo
if you
was
like
very
that or-
sensitive about being shut down, but I had no problem with doing that at all. My only worry was that that I was going to be taken off TV for an injury angle and never be put back on, because that's sometimes how it works out, right?
Yes.
But you know, and really, if that had happened, that would have been what happened. But no, I had no problem with doing it. And somebody said that somebody threatened to fire me if I didn't do it. That never happened. And I had a great relationship as an employee with both Eric and Vince Russo. In fact, I said before, and I said to him yesterday, Eric's the best boss I ever had. You always knew where you stood with him.
Yep.
You know, that's and I admire him a great deal to this day, and I wish I had worked for more people like Eric.
All right, we got one from Mark from Sacramento.
Hey, Sean, it's good to see you, man.
Hey, Mark.
Hey,
it's good to, well, I can't really see you, but.
I'm on you're right.
I hear you.
Over here. Hey, brother. Hey, you've done so many great things and admirable things in the wrestling business, but in my opinion, as a dog and an animal lover and somebody who's involved in rescue, what you've done for Lula is probably the most admirable. And I noticed on your Instagram that you have a dog that you're fostering right now. I was wondering if what you've done with Lula and everything has inspired you to do more work in the rescue.
More work at the rescues?
Yeah.
Oh, well, for sure. And by the way, that rescue, my girlfriend Angela Nissel is the one that fosters the pit bulls until yeah, she's great. Honestly, one of the reasons I was really attracted to her is because of things like that. So, yeah, actually, I don't know, you might have saw Betsy, the white pit bull, was on the Instagram, and she's in a different shelter now. We're waiting to get adopted. Hopefully we'll get a new home for her. But I just love it, man. I just get so much out of dogs.
Do you like animals better than people?
Well, I mean, I don't like to say it like that, but I just get more. They're right up there, man.
There you go. Me too. I feel the same way. I just took it. I'm going to baby face myself. I took a rescue cat in.
Nice.
And as I speak, she's destroying my house.
Nice.
Anybody else? We got any time? There's our cue. Well, listen.
Hey, are we done, or is just nobody wants to ask any more questions?
Okay, well, okay, we're getting the cue from the back. First off,
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks to all of you. This was everything I hoped it would be, but thanks mostly to X-PAc Sean Waltman. He and I have been friends dating back. I interviewed you when you were like 17, didn't I?
Yeah, a long time
ago. And we've known each
man.
other since then. Like I said, a great performer, an even better guy. Be psyched up for Double or Nothing tonight. AEW, it's going to be great, and we'll see you tomorrow back here for StarCast.
Thank you. Love you guys. Thank you so much.
What an incredible session with Sean Waltman. Again, a very smart man about the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And, he was just an incredible performer. I don't know if we give him enough credit today. He should get the credit he does, but incredible stories that we heard about. Like I said, if you'd never heard all the stories, you heard them today. Some great stories. And what a day it's been. We're getting set for a huge event taking place. What's it called? Double or Nothing.
That goes down tonight. We're wrapping up here at StarCast, but tomorrow, something to wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. We're going to have Dustin Rhodes will be on StarCast. Kenny Omega will be on StarCast. Talk is Jericho. We're going to break down Double or Nothing tomorrow right here on StarCast, but we're going to call it a day and get ready for Double or Nothing tonight, and tomorrow we're going to break it down.
Yeah, and absolutely. And folks, I know you've been enjoying what we've been seeing the last few days. It isn't over yet. Stay tuned. We've got a lot more to come. Tomorrow, be sure to stay with us. As you mentioned, we're going to see the final. Will it be the final? Something to Wrestle live show? Well, you can see it right here. Just part of what's coming your way.
That goes down tomorrow. That wraps up today. Thank you for joining us. We're done here in Las Vegas. We're heading over to Double or Nothing. It's going to be a hell of a night here in Sin City. We'll see you tomorrow right here at StarCast.
A sport that bridges generations. Live everywhere. Fight gives you instant access to live pay-per-view and free combat sports programs. Check out our combat sports schedule at fight.tv. Fight. Start watching.
Are you looking for a good fight? Check out the Fight pay-per-view schedule. Watch on the biggest screen in the house.